Swiss rounds on blitz chess was played at 15 minutes, because it's a good amount of time, to keep you active. And in it, if you had a bad game, it's very easy because of world record to have another crack at it. Whereas Donkey Kong, as is like it's in that 2-hour area. It's a grind, so it already would turn a lot of people off, and therefore they won't even try. I'm assuming and that's not an excuse for it. If they're not going to try, then it's just potential. They may, but that could be true of anyone. But with Robotron, though, I think the real thing is it does seem to eliminate a lot of pattern behaviour, prior knowledge. A little bit of prior knowledge in Robotron's going to take you a long way, but you're going to find that out just through play. There's no steering barrels or anything like that. There's no parking spots. There's the only glitch that can be exploited really is, it's a program, to save Mikey. Don't collect Mikey, and the brains will just channel towards him. In some ways that makes it a little bit easier. In some ways it makes it harder. In some ways it is a lot easier because the brains are less active, but it means you have to be much more considered about where you're going and what you're doing. But even that isn't going to assure you of a victory. If you don't have the ability just to remain alive, like the general skill of the game, which is just, as you know, we were saying 2 8-way joysticks, the configuration is quite simple, then you're just not going to do well in the game. It's as simple as that. It's the equivalent of just, if you had to put in Donkey Kong terms, it's just one barrel board after another. But the barrel isn't the same layout. The girders are different. Sometimes there's more barrels, sometimes there's less. Sometimes in different spots.
So yeah, I think it's for like the marathon. It would get tedious because it's the same. But yeah, it sort of gets no, even then. But yeah, but when it comes to the 5-man and it being so short, I think it's sort of is still a very redeeming quality to it. One thing I'd like to see with the the Robotron is, I wonder how speedrunners would take to the game, because it's a very short game and speedrunners are all about games being short, and here you have this one game that's extremely short. Maybe they would take more to that than something like Donkey Kong that takes 3 hours or so minutes to get the world record. So
I was going to bring up speedrun just as you did.
Yeah.
I think that it's a built-in for the arcade enthusiasts of these world records. It's the purity of these breaking these world records and the prestige that surrounds them in the community is legitimate. Like I think that people genuinely want to see these tracks broken, and they genuinely recognise the skill of those who do it. But I think as they approach this sort of, this kind of finite long jump record, or even infinity ones where it's clearly they're broken, they can go on. They're not broken, but they have a repetitious nature, like Space Invaders.
Yeah.
People are going to, be turned away or scored. Like they're turned away just by it's now a game of just of staying awake. Like the Asteroids world record of 57 hours. Getting the skill set to do that is not as difficult, but maintaining that skill set over 57 hours is the real challenge. It's like just, and even John McCall will tell you that it recognises a different skill, not necessarily just playing Asteroids. And that's where it's sort of headed with these infinity scores. And whereas the other ones, which are finite, then what to next? And I think you're onto something with the speedrun idea. There are games that could speedrun really well, particularly run and gun games. And, and Ghost and Goblins,
I said Moon Patrol. I think it's good.
Yeah, Moon Patrol would be great, and it's just building a track around them to find, to draw players into other competitions, because these world records are starting to run out. But it still gets, but then how do we evaluate those against each other? Because the reason I suppose the reason we're having this conversation is it is often talked about this, how do we compare one score against another? And people like to just nudge each other in a friendly way, but some people take it much more seriously. Like someone will say their Donkey Kong world record is worth more than all of someone else's 12 high scores.
I believe that.
Yeah, and well, that's the thing is like is John McCurdy's world record worthy? Is it if we place him as if we had to make a list of the top 100 players in the arcade community, which it would actually include a lot of people because there aren't that many competitive players. Where do players like John McCurdy fall in just for Donkey Kong? I would imagine quite high.
Quite high. It's got to be top 10. I'm not going to give him, because it's just one game. I will give him in the top 10, like maybe 6th, 7th place personally. But there are certain people like Matt Hall, Donald Hayes, Martin Bedard, who have scores, amazing scores, not on just 1, 2, but like dozens and dozens or hundreds of games that are just like, whoa. And so it's sort of like, and they've been doing it not just for 1 or 2 years. Like in the case of Matt Hall and Donald Hayes, they've been doing it for over 20 years. And they've been pounding away, getting great scores. So, yeah, I think I have to give it to them because in the end, a great score is amazing. But in the end, tournaments sort of, I have to respect the person that gets like first place in tournaments and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was going to just bring that up too, like I mentioned scores before, so that's a really good point. Like Andrew Barrow won scores, as we know.
Yeah.
And he bested every world record holder at that time. Well, not every, but of the top 5 scorers we're talking about, Thompson, so Mike Thompson, Armando Gonzalez, Stephen Crogwell, myself, and Andrew Laidlaw, all former world record holders, either on 5-man only or marathon. Crogwell wasn't there, of course, but the other 4 were, and Thompson and Armando hadn't got a world record at that point, but they since had. But either way, Barrow beat all of them.
Yeah.
He's never held the world record on an arcade form of Gallagher.
No.
He bet on an arcade form of Gallagher in the tournament. And this is the thing where there is a bit of distortion around world records, and again, John Clinkle came third at that event, and he's ranked with 2.2 million score in the top 10, which is a score from last year. Yet he came third, beating again myself, it was Barrow, Gonzalez, then John Clinkle, and the 2 former world record holders, myself and Laidlaw, were there.
Oh wow! So he got John Clinkle got 2,500, didn't he, just for that 3rd place?
Yeah.
That's the thing we haven't talked about. Is that money, man? That was just beyond anything imaginable. It was like they gave 10,000 to the first place winner, right? 5,000 to the second, 2,500 to the third, and what you need to realize is that type of money. I sort of think that was more money than any other game combined for the classic arcade gaming community in the past 10 years. It was just spit out 20, and then they gave 2,500, didn't they, to the amateur contest. And so when you have
1,500 to the amateur.
What? 1,500? Yeah. Okay, so and then they flew them all out. That had to be over $25,000 at least that they spent on that.
Yeah, it's not, but a similar thing is happening next in May in Pincadia in Brisbane. They're flying out players. They were going to fly out Armando as well, but he couldn't make it. It was just bad timing. But they're flying out Mike Thompson. They're flying out Jordan Dorrington because they're looking at the top 3 players.
Yeah, it's not cheap to fly someone out from the United States to Australia. And so, that's definitely some commitment. So I tip my hat off to the organizers for that.
There are people flying themselves out. Dwayne Richard is flying out, and John McAllister's flying out, and they're also flying in Andrew Barrow. And Rob McCauley up from Adelaide, he's being flown in. It's the same. It's a similar principle with not as big a prize money, but it's certainly attractive enough for people to compete.
I'm just glad that there's going to be another Galaga tournament, and they're playing, and so it's not going to die with that one tournament. There's going to be more and more tournaments. It sounds like they're just going to keep that ball rolling, which is nice.
Well, again, it's built around a different track, which is just to stage 31 on Factory 7.
Oh yeah.
So people are point pressing the hell out of it. I think that people are getting 450,000 points plus.
That's pretty impressive, yes.
First 31 stages. So it's a very different sort of. So it's a new track, which will be more like the long jump world record or the Donkey Kong, where there is a finite amount of points, but it'll always be able to edge over because we'll never get the perfect game because it's just probability suggests that ain't going to happen.
Yeah, it's
And
yeah.
weird numbering things in there too. The way it's programmed, it doesn't. The challenging stages is that people have now recognised there's been errors in the programming. And Barrow just discovered the other day. I encountered it once, but I didn't film it. I was just given an extra life. Like all of a sudden, a Galaga bot appeared with a red chip above it to collect back, and he's got the data, so he's got someone looking at it to see if something causes it to happen. So it could be a glitch that could be exploited. You get an extra bonus man under certain conditions. Yeah. So and these are things that are good on a short track because, as you know, if you shoot your ship, you get an extra 1,000 points. I think it's 1,000 points. So that's another 1,000 points to be easily gained if you can force it to happen. So it's these things that are unexplored territory that these are things are still going into, but well, it's no buts. It's still I mean, this conversation is being as politely done as it can. Is how do we compare these scores against one another? And it often gets talked about, and often people get teased about it in fun and joke, and sometimes it gets much more serious. But like you said, if you listed a top 100, like you're saying, the Martin Bedards, the Matt Hall, John McAllister, to not have these in the top 10 would be quite weird. And there's other people out there that are strongly talked about by people like Robert Merchant and others, of course, like Blaine Richard. They see him up there.
Well, he's in the top 10. And I think Robert Merchant sort of... I think he's at least top 20. He sort of downplays, but if you look at a lot of his scores, they're just really, they're decent scores, and he's got 1,000 of them on almost every single arcade game known to man. So I think he sort of doesn't get the respect he deserves for all the, it's just he doesn't have except for the Star Wars score and maybe a couple other scores, he doesn't have the eye-popping whoa type of scores. So, but he's still a pretty good game player.
There is one track that's there's a lot of tracks like that, like you mentioned Moon Patrol, and there's a lot of great tracks out there. There's tracks that no one even talks about, like Jungle Hunt, which I remember playing as a kid and liking it, and no one's playing that, and I can, fine, or Crazy Climber or Paperboy, they're just not as popular. But there's one that everyone knows, and it's not played half as much as I think it should be. My opinion of it is that it's just not pretty on as Frogger. And Frogger is one of those games that it's almost counterintuitive to what an arcade game is. There's a level of patience and alertness to you have to go when it's time to go, but you can't. It's a bit more like the rivet sport, I think. You've got to be patient. You've got to sometimes retreat to go forward. Bad move forward, back forward again, back again. It's not this progressive game where you're just eliminating enemies. You've got to find your way through, and it's a real precision game like Donkey Kong. If you're just a pixel out, then you aren't. If you jump into the box at the end, whatever they call that little hole, and you're a little bit out, that's cost you a life. So the fatigue on the player to make an error and recover from it, it's just not available. You're out.
Yeah.
And with the leaderboard, the top 5 scores there, Michael Smith has the world record from 2012. And then the number 5 scores from 1982. I think Frogger came out that year.
Yeah.
And the distance in scores is number 5th position is 260,000, whereas the world record was 970,000.
Oh wow!
So you sort of think, and Frogger's a game that I think that it is truly a difficult game. It's not a game I was drawn to because being a kid of the 80s and watching Star Wars and things and Battlestar Galactica, I just was drawn into the sci-fi element of it with things like Gallagher and Force and Scramble and games like that where you just win a rocket ship and shooting stuff up like asteroids. But Frogger's a game that, I think it's a game that whoever's got Michael Smith, hats off to him. That's got to be a serious score. But I don't know enough about Frogger, but I reckon that's very, very hard to do well.
Do you remember what I think about a few years ago? Well, Seinfeld had had this artificial score, and I forgot. I think it might have been Donald Hayes or maybe it was LaFay, and they beat this Frogger score from Seinfeld, and they asked Jason Richards, and they asked him who played the guy that got the high score, and he was I think he said, tell him that he wasted his mom's education money or something, or the words to that effect. So I was like, okay. He wasn't impressed at all that his pretend score was beaten by some
Yeah.
actual player.
Yeah. And I just looked it up while we're talking, just to sort of find out. I remember that was the Costanza score of
Yeah.
630 laughed at for being almost double anything recorded on a Frogger arcade machine, but it was finally beaten. So that sort of shows, like, I don't know how much research Larry Davidson or whoever did that score.
Yeah.
They obviously put a whopping score up. But if Costanza as a fictional character, or Larry David himself, or someone who actually did that score, that's an incredible score. But it does sort of, if you like talking about evaluation there, like I would certainly, if I can't say for certainty, but it seems to suggest when I look at the data, a little bit that we do have, that a Frogger score is a very hard score to get.
No, yeah, I've played it enough where I think my highest was like 30,000 or something, and
Yeah.
I was sort of like, oh wow, that's for me. I was sort of proud of that, not so great score. I was like, oh yeah. So it is a hard game.
I've been playing Robotron for the writing I want to do on it, and I've got, I think it's about a 415, 410, somewhere around there on 5-man only.
Which is not, which is pretty good,
Which is
yeah.
good. Well, I've been to Wave 15 a few times, but when I speak to players like Dwayne Richard, they go, oh man, you should be 500 plus thousand by then. You're not doing well enough on the save daddy and mummy stages, and I'm not. So there's a lot of things there that require a lot of fine tuning on skill, and it's so to get an extra, like even to move up into that 100,000, an extra like 500,000 is a real shift. Whereas in Gallagher, going from 500 to 600, they're basically the same score.
Oh yeah.
Just sort of, so going from 1 million to sort of, I mean, I put in brackets of, 1 million score, like 500 to me is a big shift, like just in concentration. 1 million to 2 million or 1.8, you're getting into an area of, you're starting to put good runs together or doing really big runs, because all about doing big runs on double shift. And when you're getting around the, 3 million mark, you've got really solid runs, 1.5 million on at least 2 of those, or 3 700,000 ones. You're doing scores like that, or info 4, you're able to recapture your ship and confidently regain. But when you get to scores of where they are now, it's a level of mastery that's sort of, it's just something else again,
Yeah.
But Robotron, what you're just trying to master is already intuitively being, you're cognitively sorting that through as you're playing it very quickly. I've got to run around and shoot stuff.
Well, there is now here's something I've heard is, like you were talking about how you should have had 500K. That works up to a point. From what I've heard is, if you want to get a higher score, 800,000 and up, on Robotron. It starts to change. It doesn't become get as many mommies and daddies because that's just too dangerous. The key is survival and just not going for the extra points, but just passing the board over and over and over again. And you go for what you feel is safe, but you never actually take risks that are extremely dangerous. So, I've heard, from your point to like 800K, 400K to 800, up to 800K, it's that way. But after a certain point, it changes. It's all about survival, from what I've heard. At least that's why I think Matt Hall, I said that at one time on a stream. So take what his word is for that. I'm not too sure if he's got like a 785K score, so. All right,
then George, I'm going to put you on the spot now.
Okay.
Because we've passed the hour, discussion. So I'm going to, you know a lot more names and you understand a lot more games. You've played far more games than I have or ever will have.
Okay.
So let's look at these evaluations without having to justify them, and people can complain about this afterwards.
Okay.
Who are your top 10 players then? In a rough order, if you had to compile it just on the spot, top 10 arcade players, not MAME, we'll just go with arcade.
Arcade and MAME, I want to do both, if that's okay.
Arcade and MAME, we'll put them together.
Because I believe it's the same thing for almost 90% of the games.
Yeah.
And so, and believe it or not, here's something people don't talk about MAME, is MAME has a delay. You don't get that delay in arcade. So in reality, that little bit of a delay that you get on MAME sort of makes MAME a tad bit harder because of that. So take that into account. So
I'm not anti-MAME at all. I've never understood the argument. Like Barrow is a great gamer, both competitive tournament player, world record holder. And his skills that he plays, because there aren't really any arcades he can go to in New Zealand. His main play doesn't affect him on the arcade cabinet at all.
Exactly. It's just a United States thing. Because the arcades were so plentiful, and there are so many arcade games still around today, that there is sort of a snobbish arcade is better, but I don't buy that. I've never bought that.
So who are your top 10 players?
My top 10 players... it's going to be tough. For arcade is... And MAME.
They don't have to be in order, just top 10 players.
Okay, Donald Hayes, he's got a lot of first place scores. He's still in the game today. I think Matt Hall's been catching up to him a lot because he's been around since 1999, same amount of time since Donald Hayes. But he's really starting to enter the tournaments, and he's getting the first place scores. And I think Matt Hall is catching up to Donald Hayes, maybe even surpassing him. So we got Matt Hall. I think Martin Bedard, who's a Canadian, great player, has some amazing scores. Again, he also places up pretty high in the tournaments. There's this guy named, I think today is forgotten, I think Chris something. He's also pretty good, and if you go on Retro Uprising, which is a site which lets you play games, he's got like 600 first place scores on a variety of games, and he tends to do very, very well in the tournaments. Andrew Barra, simply amazing. He's great. He's the greatest. He is by far the greatest Donkey Kong Jr., and Donkey Kong 3 player. When you combine the three, he's taken it to another level, and so I got to give him respect for that. But he's also great in Galaga and just a whole bunch of other games. So, Stephen Wagner also.
Just quickly, I think was it Chris Mansfield you were thinking of?
No.
No, he's a solid game.
No. He's pretty good, but no, I wouldn't put him in the top 10. No. I think I'd put also. Wow! The Junior Pac-Man world record holder Abner Ashman. There you go. He's great at Junior Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, and Pac-Man, and he has a great Robotron score. So I think I'd put him up there just because he's got really, really good scores on the major games. Hold on. So Abner Ashman, I said, Steve Wagner,
Martin Bedard, Matt Hall.
It's Dwayne Richards. Dwayne Richard is definitely there. He's been doing it since day one. And he's by far probably the best. He has legitimate great scores from the 80s, from the 90s, from the 2000s, and from the 10s. He's the only person I know of that has maintained a level. So he's really, really up there. I'd put him right up there with Donald Hayes and Matt Hall, and maybe Martin Bedard. And so if I had a Mount Rushmore, it'd be Dwayne Richard, Donald Hayes, Matt Hall, Martin Bedard. Those would be the prime players. Huh?
Glenn Updike has the Mount Rushmore idea, but rather than
no, yeah. So there's. Let's see. How many have I said now? I've said those. I said Wagner, and I said Andrew Barra. Hold on. There's
McAllister in there, but that's
McAllister. Yes, he is in there. By far, he's in there. He's top 5. He would be right below Rushmore. He's up there too. So McAllister, Andrew Barrow, yes. So, yeah. Hold on. I would then put, like I said, McCurdy, Robbie, and maybe. And here's something that might be. Actually, I think I put Robbie Lakeman ahead of McCurdy. Why? because McCurdy has that one big score, but Robbie Lakeman has a great score on Super Pac-Man and I think Burger Time and Zap, and so he has other great arcade scores. So I would put him.
And Tong off big things against Wes Copeland and solid play.
Yeah, and I guess I put Wes Copeland as well. And I think that's like 8, 9, or 10. I think I've given you 10 players. Or maybe Dean Seglio. Let's put Dean Seglio as number 10. What he did for Donkey Kong, he may be only 4th place, but he was the one that created a lot of the strategy for the gameplay. And along with, I forgot it, Ross Benzinger also did. But he took it to new heights when no one else thought that game could get to that level. So for that, I'd put him in the top 10 too.
If they're the players, then what are your top 10 world record titles then? What would be the top 10 you'd put if you've got 10 at least? So obviously Donkey Kong's in there. That's
one. Galaga, the Marathon, and the 5-man. Hold on. McAllister I would put over. His 1.2 million may be higher than the Galaga one. So there's that. Donkey Kong Jr., I would put that. Mark Kill, 1.4 million is extremely hard. I've played the game more than any other game. I know that score is extremely hard to get, so I'm going to give him that one. Let's see, hold on. Galaxian, you can't give that 2 million score by Charlie Farr. Simply amazing. And deserves all the respect in the world. So that's 5. Hold on.
That's all right.
It's this name of the Frogger score is pretty good too. I'll throw one outside of the box. It's not a Golden Arcade Age game, but I think the Dodonpachi high score has been pushed to an amazing amount. That's a mid-90s arcade game. Yeah. So that's... And hold on. Oh, wait. Oh, freak. What the heck? Maybe my Donkey Kong 3 score is up there. I don't know. See, you got the best joke of the day.
It's only funny because you say, maybe my Donkey Kong. No, but I think it's legitimate,
Okay.
Thinking about the Donkey Kong scores, they are competed on heavily, like I don't know Donkey Kong Jr. I know the game because it's competed on so much. You get a sense of how difficult the game is, and when you don't have them being competed on so hard, it's more difficult.
Well, I know Barrows played Donkey Kong 3, and he said it was one of the hardest things he's ever had to do. So, and he's a great player. So, take it for what it's worth.
I often talk about the game The Pit that no one plays at all, and it's ridiculously tedious. It's just a hard game. It's like a weird speed run almost, and there's some points to. It's like the guy who made it just designed the game. Just thought, how many ways can you die in a game? It's like Frogger, but it's just not as enjoyable, and it's got the same end. It's a very hard game. It's not even that hard. You have to play it, and if people did start playing it. The Pit. It's called the Pit.
Okay, yeah, I haven't really played it that much. See, there's a game that you've played. I have not. So, yeah, you've got games that I'm like, So, yeah, supposedly the Carnival high score is a really, really amazing score. Let me think.
Of course, pole position is still...
Oh, yeah, the pole position, if it's I think it's legit, and since... So since it hasn't been proven, there's people that like you're an idiot for thinking it's real. I get it, but if it's real, then I'm gonna have to put that in the top 10 as well. Okay, and then there's some marathon scores. I think the Nibbler score by Rick Carter, 1.25 million, is simply it's a remarkable amount of endurance because that game will tear apart your hands.
Isn't it a billion point score? What did you say?
1.25 billion. That's Rick Carter's.
I thought you said million. I thought it was a
billion. 1.25 billion. And then And then I think,
This McAllister's asteroid just for its duration is
Yeah.
also, and
Yeah.
I think the Tron ones are well up there for just duration. They go for like 70 hours or something, don't they? They're crazy long.
and there's the whatchamacallits. Yeah, but again, the Tron ones I'm not buying. Oh, the Robotron ones I'm not buying.
This is Tron.
Oh,
Yeah,
Tron. Those go about 20. The records
Yeah.
was done by David Cruz, and it was done for 24 hours. Yes, Tron deserves to be up there.
I thought it was much longer. Anyway, there you go.
No, because there's only 4 men, and so David Cruz's, I believe, I forgot what his name is. Victor Sandberg, I think his name is, that lives in Europe. He has a Missile Command marathon score. Both Missile Command scores deserve to be in the top 10. I put him as equal as one. Also, Tony Temple has a 5 million 5-man score, which is just simply outrageous. And I'd have to put George Lech's 84 and a half. He spent 85 hours on Qbert. And so, it just to be able to maintain that focus, because it supposedly just, when you play that long, it just messes with your mind. And so I have some respect for marathoners. I know there's some people that don't.
Qubert's isometric graphics, even at the first stage after a good sleep, can mess with your mind. You can easily make a mistake with Qbert to an unfamiliar player. Hey. Anyway, George, that's a good list.
Yeah. Which, do you have a list that's...
Oh, well, quickly, I think mine gets pretty flaky because my knowledge of a lot of this isn't anywhere near as detailed as yours.
Okay.
I think for just purity of play, I'd have to have, I think, Robotron, although it's not tested as much, I think it just doesn't have any of the sort of problems of other games that I've looked at. The only other one that I think would be equal to that I've looked at would be Sinistar, but I don't know it as well, and there isn't as much conversation around it. Certainly Robotron, which is being played on 5 men, and strictly 5 men only. I'm not interested at a marathon level at all, because it just gives out the 3 men too quickly on factory setting. But the 5 man only track is, that's about as, for me, that's as pure as you can get. Like, it doesn't have the sort of rote learned behaviour of Pac-Man and things like that. It doesn't have, you're not running on like the 6 shooters left and right, and you've got like learning how to stay out of the corner. It doesn't have that. You have to get into corners. It has all the. Sometimes you're shooting across the screen. Sometimes it's like you're in a knife fight. Sometimes you're just trying to push a Hulk back to get point. There's lots of things going on in that game that keep it very much. It's like the.
Oh.
It's innovative.
Yeah.
You have to solve things on the fly, very much so.
There's one game that you know of very well. I think you have an interesting take on it, and that's the Galaga marathon record and the 5-man record. In your mind, what do you think is the greater record, the marathon or the 5-man, and why?
I think at the moment, the marathon is the far more difficult record to get, because it just requires a level of, and I didn't think it was the case when I was playing years ago. I mean, I never thought I was never going to try for it, because I knew I couldn't do it, and I didn't. I just was so tired of it after 5 man anyway. But getting the marathoners really takes a level of skill that's above the concentration and skill. But I think that could shift soon, as if we start seeing 5-man scores hitting around the 10 million mark, it'll start to erase some of those. Like it's so much better than a lot of the marathon scores already, that it might start to shift back on the tournaments that anyone, until someone puts up a much bigger score. But I think a bigger score would have to be around the 25 million mark to get it back where it probably should be as the tournament one goes up. So if tournament hits 10 million, then the marathon needs to be about 25 to find its equivalent score, I think. That's
Okay.
Yeah. So at the moment, I think the marathon score is a much more difficult score, but I don't think that will remain so if 5-man one.
Yeah. And what do you think the 5-man? You had some theories about where the 5-man will be by the end of the year.
I think that I think someone's going to break 7 million.
Okay.
So 7 million already, and then it's just it just depends how much it's competed on. I think. See, Mike Thompson's an interesting fellow, like how much he's got the world record, but he was kind of almost hesitant to even sort of put a score up for it.
Yeah.
Jordan Twitton is very keen to get the world record.
Okay.
And whether he's still keen to keep chasing it. I think Armando is a definite person who, I think he just feels that score's on loan to Mike Thompson at the moment. He's going to get it. Whereas Andrew Barrow, who certainly I would say the record's there for him to take if he can be bothered to do it, but he doesn't have a cabinet and he's not that fussed about it. He likes where his score's at, he likes where the Gallagher World Record score is at, and he's just sort of thinks that's fine, and he's playing stone in the other games. Whereas, see, Mike Thompson is very good at other games too.
Okay.
He has his own private arcade, like in his house. He's got a lot of machines, and but he's not submitting scores. Whereas Barrow's submitting scores on, so many titles that Gallagher's just another one of them. It's more prestigious because he's well known and competed on, but he's not fazed by that at the moment. I don't think he's just doing his thing. So I think that if just two of those people can stay in there, and of course Stephen Krogman's, he's playing again and he's got a machine, so I think Stephen Krogman could, like he has mentioned a score, wanting to submit a score of around the sort of, I think around the 10 million mark, and I don't think it's all talk when it comes to his ability, so we could see some monster score coming this year from someone like Stephen, like any of the guys, but Stephen particularly, if he's got his mind on it, then he may well submit a score of 8+, 9+. Because Gallagher's one of those scores when it's broken, it's usually shifted by a big amount. Mike Thompson's only just tipped that, but usually you get these kind of big jumps.
That makes sense. Yeah.
3.7 to 3.2, 3.2 to 4.5, 4.5 to 6 or whatever. Because you get a big run and you can just go for it. So there's no reason to think that someone can't get 10 million now that they've got basically 7. Then 3 million on top of that is certainly doable.
I think 10 million's, that's the mark.
Look at Barrow had a game of his 6 million score. I think 5 million were done on the last 2 men. So you get these, or wherever it was. There was something crazy like that. He lost most of his men in the first million points. So if people can get better at comfortably putting bigger runs together, then we can see a 10 million mark.
I heard that Barrow did like 500,000 right on his last man or something like that, which I was
on a single stream.
So there was I'm sort of decent at Gallagher. I think I've got like a 550k score. Yeah. But there was one time I think I went 50,000 on one man, and I was like, I was so proud of myself for making it. And then I see Barrow do like 500k. I'm like, oh, wow, that's insane. That's just amazingly good.
He's one of these players that, like you said, why he's in the top 10. It's just a different skill set. But I might finish it there, George.
I think that's a good place to leave it. Okay.
But so I think we've got some names and titles there. So I'm sure there'll be differing opinions there, and people saying, why haven't you mentioned? And there'll be names and players and titles, of course, and tracks. So hopefully we can get a bit more feedback and be
it'd be interesting to see the comment section and see what players I've missed or what scores I missed. I probably have missed a lot.
You may have made a few enemies. Anyway, I'll talk to you soon, George.
All right, bye, man. Talk to you later. Bye.